Okay, I want to give you guys a quick review on um, the alternate interiors, exteriors, the whole parallel line to cut by transversal stuff. So if you just want a quick review, look at this, and then we go over it two or three times to really get it. But there's also the review for the section 3A, so make sure you go through that too if you need extra, because again, you can reassess this, but you're going to have to do it before school or after school. But we'll spend time in class going through these things. So two parallel lines, one, two, and a transversal. The key thing is you have to identify colors and names. So what I'm going to do is go through a few examples. I'm going to get the colors. Now, these two are vertical. They're right across from each other, and they're not within the parameters of the two parallel lines. They're just within this area here up top, the first box here. Uh, the second one, this one would correspond. So these two here and here are called corresponding, which allows us to see that that all three of those red ones are the same. And these guys are also all the same. But if I look at the picture and I start identifying parts, I see that if I have the same color, they're congruent. It means they're the same. And if they're different colors, if I pair up two things that are different colors, then they must add up to 180 or they're supplementary. So quickly, if I ask you for this angle and this angle, they're, remember this is inside or interior. Sorry, let's use the right words. This part here is the interior. These parts here and here are the exterior. Okay, and if I look at those two are on the outside. They're both exterior, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal, which is here. So they're on opposite sides. So they're called alternate exterior. And they're also supplementary, because see how they're different colors? Or no, they're congruent. See how this color here, this one, and this one, they're both red? That means they're congruent. So I should have started with the most important though. The most important one is the ones that are corresponding. So corresponding is the same position. See how they're both in the upper left? Those are corresponding. And corresponding are also congruent. So there's two names for those. There's a corresponding and congruent. So let's pick another one. Let's pick this one and this one. So now I've got two that are in the interior and are on the same side. So alternate or same side interior. And notice how that one's red, this one's red, and this one's green. So they must add up to 180. So they're supplementary. Let's pick another pair. This one and this one. Those are, let's see, they're on the exterior, and they're both on the same side of the transversal. Again, here's the transversal right there. Transversal. They're on the same side of that line, so they're called exterior, same side. And notice that they're both, notice this one is green, this one is red, so they're also supplementary. So those are same side exterior, and they're supplementary. Now the ones that trick people up the most are ones that are not within the parallel lines. These two guys right here, the two ones I've got dotted, this one and this one, those are right next to each other. That's called adjacent. Adjacent. And notice that the adjacents are both different colors. This one's green, this one's red, this one's red, move, baby, red. So they're supplementary. And also this one, if I pair up these two, they're right across from each other. They're not part of the parallel lines. They're only part of the two lines here, the intersecting lines. Those are called vertical. And notice they're the same color. So they are congruent or the same. Now, that's only if you're naming them and you're just titling them. That's going to help us with our proofs, because if I can name them and I can tell if they're congruent or supplementary, I can also do proofs, because if they say two angles are equal, say they say this angle here, oops, I'm erasing, say this angle and this angle, they say are congruent, they title them. They say call this angle 1 and this angle 7. Well, if they say angle 1 is congruent to angle 7, I say, well, why are they? I trace my parallel lines and my transversal, and I say, oh, well, that's because they're corresponding. Notice how they're both on both the lower right. That's corresponding. So I know they're congruent. If this proof says measure of angle 7 is equal to the measure of angle 1, I can say that's because they're corresponding, and corresponding angles are congruent. Now, the only other thing you want to worry about here is when they give you numbers. So if they give you numbers, the pattern matters, but let's say they just give you that one, 70. I'm going to go ahead before I even look at anything else on the page. If I see an angle that says 70, that means I know everything else. I know all 8 angles. This one, that one, and this one are vertical. 70 and this one are supplementary. So if I add 70 and 110, I get 180. Or I take 180 and subtract 70, I get the 110. That means this is 110. So I've got this pattern. Now I'm going to use the corresponding. This one and this one are both in the upper left. They're both corresponding. That's 70. That means that's 70 because of vertical. And adjacent, 110, 110. Again, now I've got the whole pattern. So watch how that works with diagrams. This diagram here, it's a hot mess. I agree. But here's where we'd be naming things. So like if I choose 13, I say, hey, 13 and 9, name them. Well, trace your 2 parallel lines that are connected to the 9 and 13 and your transversal. If I look at these two, they're both in the lower left, so I could say they are congruent because they are corresponding. Feel me? Or I can move this dot, move it over here. Oops, I lost it. Let's erase it real quick. Erase that dot. Let's move the dot over here. Now I say, wait a minute. Okay, I traced it. I say, let's see. Inside this is the inside here. So they're exterior and they're in opposite sides of my transversal. So they're alternate exterior angles. And let's see. Alternate exteriors. Let's see. This one goes with this one. It corresponds to this one, which is that one. So they must be congruent, same color. See how that works? Notice I didn't even pay attention to anything down here because it's not a part of the 13 and 9 we started with. Let's look at another one real quick. Let's suppose I said 1 and 2. I trace the 2 angles and I get that. There's no parallel lines there. I notice that they're right next to each other. So they're adjacent. They're adjacent. And adjacent wind up with different colors because these guys and these guys are how you pair it up. So 1 and 2 have different colors, so they must be supplementary. And one more. Let's choose, let's say I say angle 3 is that if I take the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 8, do I get 180? Let's see if that's true. Here's 3 and here's 8. So I'm going to trace them. That's this parallel line, that parallel line, 2 parallel lines, and a transversal. I look at those two and I say interiors, interior, inside the river, and they're on the same side of the transversal, so they're same side interior. Let's follow my pattern. So let's see. That one is vertical with that one. 3 corresponds to 7, same position, upper right, and that's that one. But if I look at that, then that means this one, and that one, and that one. So basically, what I have is I have 3 here is definitely blue, 8 is definitely red, so that must mean they're supplementary if those 2 lines are actually parallel. Got it? Now, here's the example in the review that had numbers in it. Now, I'm going to look at the 80 first, and there's this parallel line pairs me up with that 2y. So what I do is I say, okay, this angle is congruent to this angle, so this one's got to be 80. I use numbers because they give me numbers. corresponds to this one, which is 80. I don't even need to do the rest of the picture because if these two are the same color, because they're corresponding, then 2y has to equal 80. Now, if they ask me to solve for y, I divide by 2 and I get 40. But if I come over here and I look at this number, 20, and I pair it up with this guy, that gives me these two parallel lines, 1, 2, and my transversal. Now I'm going to look at my numbers. If that's 120, that's 120 because it's vertical. 120, this has got to be 120, and that's got to be 120. That means the other numbers have to be add up to 180. So 180 subtract 120 is 60. That means this one's got to be 60, this one's 60, and this 60. But all I really care about is this right here. I wanted x, and x is right there. And because I paired up my numbers, I know 4x has to be the same as 60, not 120. So I divide by 4, and you get 15. That's it. That's your quick review. Remember to go over the whole test, which included midpoints, finding midpoints, and finding lengths again. Then you need to look at the longer version, which is also attached to this same assignment. Good luck. I hope you do well.